just to get them into your hands. I promise you, you're going to have questions, but I'm going to answer all of those questions more on a one-on-one basis through our first 2 locations. So if you could, just hang on to those questions so that way we can get all these devices out into everybody's hands. And again, you're going to all work with me one-on-one. So first thing we're going to be using, thermal imaging. So why would I want thermal imaging inside of a ghost hunt? Oh, come on, somebody.
Temperature differential. Yeah.
Right, exactly. In what way? Hot or cold?
To see what the cold spots.
Cold spots, literally. This is a FLIR Pro. What does that mean for you? This is what firemen use to actually help save people. This is the real deal. This is not a phone app. This is not any of those things. Like, we are literally looking for cold spots. So you guys should be able to see me in there, right? Red, orange, and yellow guy. Sorry, fellas. I'm the hottest thing inside the video. Mostly ladies. I got to play to my strengths, right? So, but with that said, we're literally looking for blue and black to either start moving on their own or to drop in major temperature. So again, I'm talking like 15-degree differences. So again, does this capture something every single night? No. But when it is running and we do capture something, it is a holy cow moment, just so you guys know. Jessica, this one's going to go to you. Simply because this one doesn't normally always need an extra device to actually kind of help aid it. But with this, you'll also be kind of like our slow camera person throughout the entire night. So you're going to hold it basically right-handed all night long. We're going to do a few starts and stops just because as great as this guy is, the software for it sucks. So if we record for too long, we're going to lose footage. No worries, I'll splice it all together. But always make sure the camera's on your left. Perfect. All right, let's get the next one out.
It checks for different temperatures. So
absolutely, it's your tour. You guys have a blast.
Okay. And random places where you wouldn't expect it. Okay.
The next camera looks a little nutty, but I will guarantee you this thing is super fun. So, quick demo with this guy, and it's weird that it's still a little bit light out because I can actually see faces. This is weird because you all showed up early, which is awesome. But you should not be able to see me in that little tiny GoPro camera right there. It should be pretty black, other than a couple of cars driving by. I know I'm showing you a black screen. How fun is that? But we're going to turn on some lights. Your entire screen should now be purple. I just lit up 24 LED infrared lights on here. So the hope here is because these is lights that you cannot see with your own eyes. The hope here is that we're going to be able to see something or capture something in the camera that we would not normally be able to see with our own eyes. So orbs are a great thing that actually pop through here about once a week. The other piece might be some movement that we're going to be using with some lasers. So again, this guy is super fun, but again, it is very just slow camera movements and watching the camera to see what's actually going to pop out of it. So we're going to be using an accompanied item with this. Lori, was it? Look at me getting names right. Holy cow! So the accompanying item with that, I like to kind of get it out of the way so that way it doesn't break apart from the other person. It's going to be you. This is the neuralizer from Men in Black. None of you are going to remember anything. But I love it. I got jokes, everybody. Lasers. So notice you can see the green dots on the ground. You can see the pen in my hand, but you can't see the lasers until something actually passes through it. The hope here is that with Lori's camera, we're going to be able to capture that movement and I'll be able to give you stills. Through that camera, this thing's going to light up like a Christmas tree. I'm sure you can see those lights pretty brightly. We're going to be using 2 different style of lasers. The reason being is this one gives us red squares. In the event we capture something here, I could take the still from the video, put it in 3D software, and give you a full 3D view of what we caught along with measurements. So, have I caught anything with this guy yet? Yes, but the software wasn't taken because it was a little too blurry. I have plenty, but none of the software is very touchy. So hopefully tonight is our night. You're going to get both of these when you're operating them. Just make sure that the laser is always touching the tip of your toe, so that way you have them in control. There is a laser law in Charleston, so if we raise them, again, Nick gets in a lot of trouble and I get arrested.
Okay. So
no pressure.
Both of them touching my toes?
Yeah. And you always want to kind of, like, we don't want to have them on all the time because there'll be certain spaces that, obviously we don't just stir horses or anything like that. But basically when I say lasers are safe here, that's when you're going to break both of them out.
I don't know how to turn this one on.
It's got a toggle switch, so once it's on, it's on.
Okay.
So you just have to be careful, like, not to move it around too much.
Okay.
Just gotta make, it's just like a light switch.
Cool.
Spirit boxes. Let's break into those. I love using spirit boxes. I have 6 different spirit boxes that we're going to be using tonight because they all do something a little bit different. If you're unfamiliar with these, this is basically a communication device to the dead. Normally on your TV shows, Tracy's looking at me like, yeah, right. I love the look on your face.
No. I've been around them. It's good.
So, spirit boxes on TV, this is normally just your white noise, right? And then your host will tell you what he thinks he heard in the middle of it, trying to convince you of the same thing. Mine are slowed down. We're using a little bit different of a method because none of you are trained to listen to white noise for 2 hours, plus the history, somebody's going to fall asleep. So I slowed it down to allow the radio chatter to actually come through. I want the song lyrics, the DJs, the commercials. In the event we can make out any of those things, it's a 50-50 shot. I can tie it to the location of where we are, a person in history, even something going on with one of you. It happens all the time. Now the person, I have 2 of these I'm going to be handing out. This one in particular is going to record the entire session, but the person using it is going to be the only person to hear it because they're getting a set of earbuds. So they're going to have one earbud in, and I'll be writing down whatever they hear in real time, and then I'm going to spot check this recording tomorrow morning to give you 15 to 25 more markers. Just so you guys know, in the event that it's actually relevant to the space, I will always give you a link to be able to verify the information. Again, I'm not making anything up here. We're looking for actual evidence. Miss Beth, this one's going to go to you. She's like, oh boy, that was like really tricky. So, I don't want earbuds back. Again, your earwax is your own souvenir, so you can get to keep that. Your volume button is right here. It's a wheel. So I'm just making sure it's turned all the way down for you. You'll have to undo the twist tie, pop one earbud in, and then turn it up to get used to where the volume is at. But it's already started the recording. Let's see, where's the second one going to go?
He really wants one.
I do.
Who said you wanted a spirit box?
Oh, I have several.
Okay.
We're going to go through several. Justice, I think I'm going to go with you on this one.
Okay, he's got it.
Now, this one does not record.
Okay.
So I'm going to be relying on you on whatever you hear in real time to be able to write it down so it can go in everybody's notes. So again, earbud, the earwax is yours. You get to keep that. Your volume button is right here, the wheel.
Okay.
It's all the way down right now. So when you put an earbud in, just turn it up slowly and get used to how that sounds.
What am I writing stuff down on?
I will be writing it down.
Oh, okay.
I'll be following up with you. Let's see. How do we want to do this? No, this spirit box is going to go to you. So this one works completely different. Just so everybody knows how this one works, it's going to go through both the FM and AM radio stations at the same time. But what it's going to try to do is it's going to try to take out the white noise that everybody else is hearing. So it is hopefully only going to give us words every couple of minutes. It only gives us about 10 to 12 words in a 2-hour time frame. So you may only hear about 10 terms that actually pop up out of this guy, but it is 75% accurate. I've had this guy for about 2 months and it is on point. So the only thing you need to worry about is where the blinking lights means that's the top. On the right hand side is a mute button. I just turned it on so I can kind of get through the rest of these, and I'll let you know when it's safe to turn it back on. Basically unmute it. You don't need to hit anything on the front. All right, who do I got left?
Am I supposed to be tuning this into a radio station?
It's already doing it for you. It's sweeping all of the radio stations hundreds of times for you tonight.
Oh.
So if you make out whatever comes through, if it's a radio station, a DJ, a song lyric, I want to know what you heard. If you heard buy a Kia today, I want to know that you heard buy a Kia today. Does that make sense?
And,
Again,
like, do you want to know the radio station too?
Nope.
Okay.
If they're going to be too fast to capture like that, like I don't care about all that. It's all about the message coming through. I don't care if it's male or female. I care about what you're hearing, not who you're hearing. So if you recognize a Harry Styles song, I don't care that it's Harry Styles. I want to know that you heard it as it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So you said you've been around some of this equipment before. Have you ever been around a millimeter before?
It's been a long time.
Okay. So I'll explain to everybody how this actually works. So a millimeter is basically going to read EMF, electromagnetic fields. So with that said, the top number is a digital readout of that. So I want to know anything above 2.5, just because on a regular K2 meter, that's the first reading. So we'll kind of debunk it from there. The bottom is ambient temperature. Jessica finds something on her camera, you and I can debunk it or prove it pretty quickly with the little ambient probe right here. The last thing that it has, we don't always use this guy, but we're probably going to use it a lot tonight just because it's so busy. We'll have that opportunity, is a REM pod. It's a motion sensor. If something gets close to this antenna, it's gonna go off. I'm not touching it right now.
Right.
I am now. So we're gonna talk more about those colors and what those actually mean at our next location. So again, just get used to how those numbers read for now. I think I'm gonna do it this way. So. This spirit box we don't actually have to listen to. This one's going to give us words in the center of the screen from time to time. This is what we would use normally as called an ovilus. If you guys watch the TV shows. So it's going to save all of the terms into a list. Last night we actually had 68 terms come up. That's a little light for a normal 2-hour time frame. I'm going to clear out that history. What I love about that list is that it has timestamps next to every single word. So we can actually start to piece together all the different clues from all the different spirit boxes. However, this is a phone app. So again, with this, Marion, this one's going to go to you. 80% of it is going to be bullshit. I'm just going to call it right now. The other 5 to 20% is going to be relevant to our location and be able to help piece all of the other things together that you guys are all listening to on your spirit boxes. You're going to get this full list back, because sometimes one of these terms might be relevant to you, and I just don't know it. Again, I don't want to see every word that pops up. I'll come to you when I want to see the list, and then you just hit the little white square to the right, and you'll be able to scroll through it when it actually comes up. So right now we're at a clear slate. The word tolerance will not be on your word list. You're on double duty. You mentioned pictures. So this one we're going to use to debunk things.
Okay.
So Tracy's is a little bit more accurate, but you're still going to get colors on this guy.
Okay.
You got to let me know what colors, and I already have the measurements memorized. You just got to pay attention to coloring.
Okay.
The other thing you're going to do is take a lot of pictures for us.
Okay.
So because we never know what's actually going to pop up through them. Now there's going to be lasers that are being worked too, so you want to take pictures of a lot of lasers.
Okay.
Sometimes they might have their camera turned. We're going to hopefully capture it here. The only thing you need to worry about on this guy is the shoot button, because there's no flash.
Okay.
Just be very still when you're taking pictures, otherwise they're all going to come out blurry because there's no flash. The big button on the right is the shoot. If it turns off because you didn't take any pictures in a while, the power button's right next to it.
Okay.
You get both devices, you're double fisted. All right, everybody's geared up. I didn't miss anybody, right? Because you guys threw me off because you stepped aside.
Sorry.
All right, Justice is in charge. Go have fun. No, I'm kidding. Don't go anywhere. So, of course, we start here for a reason, but you guys are going to have me talking, and this traffic's going to have me shouting all night. So I'm going to take a quick drink before I lose my voice.
Should I already be recording on this? Or
Yes,
not
the
yet?
square means you're recording. So we want to leave it on record. I'll give you the
it
cue
is.
of when to stop. So you've been
Okay.
recording the ground for us for the past 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Yep. So there's no ghosts in the leaves.
So I'm sorry, was I supposed to start this or
It's already working.
it's
For you.
already working? So I don't need to
Everything I gave you guys is already working except for spirit boxes. And you guys have volume buttons. That's pretty much the only thing. Everything else is already underway. Okay, Big John's behind me. Of course, the place is haunted. That's why we start here. So, Big John's. It was named after a football player. It was his bar. His name was Big John Kennedy. Can you imagine why they named it Big John's? Why he named it after himself? He played for the 1947 New York Giants. Whenever I'm telling you the history of a location, I will always slow down on specific keywords for all of you Spirit Box folks. In this location, it would be 47, New York, Giants, anything relatable to a bar. So, but he used to sit in the back of this place, and he would let the bartender know if the cadets coming over from the Citadel, if they were old enough to drink or not. One night, 2 guys come in, they weren't old enough to drink. So he has the bartender throw them out. They come back the next night, and they try to steal the cash register from the front of the bar. John sees what's going on.
I just heard a song,
What'd you hear?
a country song.
What was the lyric?
It said probably would have.
Probably wouldn't. Okay. We'll wait to see if something else pops up to finish that sentence. So, but he gets up after seeing these guys trying to steal his cash register from the front of the bar. Like, he slams down his beer and he goes over and just starts beating the hell out of these guys, pounding them right into the floor. A couple of gunshots go off. John gets hit in the neck, but the bullet lands behind him in the wall. He gets up after being shot. He's been the only one that's been shot, by the way. He goes back to the bar and tells the bartender to get him another beer, get the 2 guys on the floor in ambulance. Now, I normally tell you that a building is haunted. You normally think of some tragic death. Nobody died in that story. So what's haunting the place is the bullet hole. It's allegedly still here. Even if this Big John's renovation that we're looking at right now filled in that bullet hole, Big John's blood is still in this building. People that sit in the front of this building tend to get a little queasy, nauseous, or headache. Now, this is kind of your heated warning, which is part of the reason why I like to start here. If anybody feels any of those symptoms tonight, because fingers crossed, we're going to be dealing with paranormal activity tonight, I don't know how it's going to affect any of you. I need to know immediately so we can move the whole group and get that person to safety. Granted, it's very humid out tonight, so we'll blame that first, but at the same token, I need to know so we can get that person to safety. Now, everybody got this little bit of a worried look on their face for a moment, so I'm going to break the subject. Same building real quick before we leave this space. Have you guys been taking other Charleston tours, by the way? So history tours? None at all? Well, we had a big earthquake here in 1886. So if you didn't take another history tour, now you know. It's a big anomaly for us because this is South Carolina. We're supposed to have hurricanes, not earthquakes. Big John's, the building, is allegedly where the first death occurred from that earthquake. The white mantling you see in the middle of the building also wraps around the front where all the heavy traffic is. Apparently a piece of it broke off and struck somebody in the back of the head and killed them, and they say you can see his ghost in the middle of East Bay Street in the middle of the night. And notice I said apparently and allegedly a lot with that. It's just a great segue so we're not thinking about getting sick on the tour. I don't have any proof of that actual first death of the earthquake. It's one of those rumor mill pieces. So, you guys ready to go ghost hunting?
Yep.
All right. I know Kathy and Lori are ready to go. Like they were trying to leave without us already. We're gonna actually go this way. Set up here.
Big John was trying to tell you something.
I know. It was the Luke song.
Again, very rarely do I have anything dark and mysterious start the show on, just so you know. I think I lost some. I don't know. Just felt like maybe you guys were sparsed out. So welcome to the Big Red Barn Lot, everybody. This is a very short stop, only so we can talk more about your devices and you guys can start asking me questions after I go through them. The history here is really simple. First off, you should know this is where we keep the horses for your carriage rides. So again, this is one of the locations. They can hear us, which is why we use earbuds with our spirit boxes now. They don't like the white noise. They keep them at a wall and scare the shit out of all of us. Sorry for the French, but that's the only way to explain it. Now, the only history here is really simple. This is the same red barn that actually held horses that delivered milk and eggs to the residents of Charleston. Obviously, the keywords here I slid down with would be delivery, milk, eggs, anything related to the state. So let's talk about the spirit boxes first. More of those than anything else. These communication devices are not like television, okay? Just so everybody knows. What's the first question everybody wants to ask when they get some kind of communication device for the dead? Ouija board, spirit box. What do you think that question might be?
Is somebody here?
Is somebody here? Exactly. If somebody says no to justice, that means somebody's here. So we are not going to be asking yes and no questions all night long. With that said, yes and no questions, there's no paranormal proof in any of it. We are going after the details. Spirit box people that have never used a spirit box before, I normally tell them in a space like this, ask questions you already know the answers to. If somebody's here, tell me what color the big red barn is. Obviously, we are looking and listening for the color red. Who has the word Marion? So let's say, obviously, he's got a full dictionary for ghosts to be able to play with, to be able to manipulate. However, the rest of you are using song lyrics and DJs to hopefully get a conveyed messages back to us. The word red might not be available to them right away. So the words blood, heart, fire truck, those three things are specifically red. So if you hear the word blood after asking the question, what color is the big red barn? Obviously, I would take that as an acceptable answer because it is a direct question, a direct answer. However, most of the night, I'm going to require that there's two happenings from either one or more devices to be able to verify what's going on. Let's give you another example. We're going to use Beth and Marion again. Let's say Marion's word list has the word art on it. It doesn't mean anything here by itself. But then Beth hears the number 40. That doesn't mean anything by itself. But Art Fairclough was number 40 on Big John's team. You guys see where we're going to be connecting clues together all night long from your different spirit boxes and why I write everything down? So again, we're looking for those specific type of clues. Again, with the spirit boxes that actually have the sweeping radios, you are listening for DJs, song lyrics, and it says, it was a bloody massacre at whatever. The word bloody massacre would be something I would write down to see if it connects to another part of a sentence kind of thing. That's what I'm looking for. So again, when you guys are going through this, there's kind of a field guide that kind of helps you along as well. Let's see, let's start into the cameras. So we'll start with the laser since you guys already seem to be working. You're actually in the wrong direction. So go ahead and keep one of your lasers on, perfect. You don't want to point down at the lasers just because we already know what the red squares look like. We're looking for something in here. So you would literally take 1 to 2 steps backwards and be able to get the whole field of the pyramid to be able to come through your camera. So that way when something does come through here, we'll be able to capture it right away. I am going to hit your record button, by the way. I did not do that from the start. Let me know if you get a little message that says, please format SD card. But again, that's how you two will be working. Nice slow movements, and always, like you said, you're at perfect range right now. You have them nice and tight. Lasers also can set off car alarms, just so you guys know. No pressure at all. See how I spread that out so she doesn't panic on me?
So is it one laser at a time?
Not necessarily. Your two lasers, you want to keep them side by side. You don't want to cross the streams because then it would just be pointless. Nobody got my Ghostbuster joke. Bill, I was relying on you for that one. The reason for that is because now we have two laser grids pointing out, so we can have motion here, then here. Put them together, we just basically created one giant one. We want to try to cover as much ground as we possibly can, even though we want to keep them controlled.
Okay. So should I be taking pictures of like inside the laser?
You got it. I mean, all of us working in nice, slow pictures. Make sure you're perfectly still when you're taking those photographs.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're all going to come out blurry, and I got to analyze every little light streak that comes through.
Okay.
Jessica, your camera. You're going to try to do two things for us. Well, I guess with all three cameras out, we're going to be in spaces like this where there's going to be parked cars or people walking by. We do not film other people directly and looking like YouTubers. We also don't, I know, right? Again, I don't have any teenagers here, so that was kind of funny. Everybody laughed here. Normally the teenagers are kind of like, yep, I'm the YouTuber. But we also don't film people's cars. So again, I will always kind of give us a fair warning at each location where there might be parked cars, this obviously being one of them. And if I do an Andy's coming, yours is going to be really easy. Miss Lori, you're just going to point yours at the ground, and obviously you have a cell phone, much easier to handle, and you're a tourist, so you can take pictures of whatever you want to. But your camera, you're going to try to do two things. I know I just told you not to take, film of other people, but I definitely want one of us in view at all times. The reason for that, folks, is because our skin's going to be the warmest thing out here, no matter how humid it is for us. It's going to give her that array of color, and even on your video, it's going to be much easier to spot those cold spots. I also want you to try to keep the sky out of view. The reason why is because the sky doesn't have a surface. That blue dot that's bouncing around the screen, that's helping you find the coldest spot in the frame at that moment, and it will default to the sky every single time it's in view because there's no surface.
Okay.
So just do your best because some spaces are going to be impossible, just so you know.
Yep.
As far as where's the... I lost it. Who's got the... Tracy, I will work with yours. There's a lot of detail that goes into that REM pod, so you're kind of like the individual that I work with at the next space.
Okay.
Are there any other questions before we leave this space and go deep dive away from football players and ponies?
I do. What should I tell you that this is going on?
I usually have a pretty good eye on yours, but again, there'll be times where we almost like separate where I'm working with somebody else, so you just kind of have to keep track of the colors.
So just that it just like goes up a little bit?
Yep.
Okay.
And then always look for patterns. Bill, I saw a hand.
I'm looking just for solid red.
No, you're going to be listening is what you're going to be doing. So once I allow you to unmute it, which will be at the next space, you're going to be listening in for keywords that just kind of come through that little bits of static that you're going to get.
As far as words,
So I will come to you when we want to see the word list. Let's kind of take a quick glance at it. Hit the little white box next to it. Perfect.
So glad I didn't know this way.
So far, I don't see anything. So go ahead and hit the circle back at the top right. Got it. Did I say joke?
Say less. Yeah.
All right. So, I think I got everybody covered. Let's go deep dive into some history. Let's get away from these football players. I'm not a sports guy, in case you guys couldn't tell.
That's where we were. Was it good?
No.
Okay, get to know.
We didn't even stop to get served because it was just...
Oh my goodness.
We didn't find it to be good anything.
Yeah, I hear that.
It felt like it.
Ooh, no. We tried a place yesterday that was called Speakeasy on Main Street. That was wonderful.
Really?
Yes. So good. And their patio was just beautiful.
We ended up at some oyster bar and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speakeasy where?
On King Street.
Yes.
It'll be close to like Anna.
Mayday.
Close to Anna.
You know what? That showed up on another tour a couple of nights ago when we were near another location, but it showed up at that same spot a week before that. It has to be a commercial. But again, I'm still going to take it only because the word may actually means something to this location. And that was my first thought when I heard it near another location. I'm like, yeah, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense here. I wrote it down and put it in their notes, but I didn't give them any links to be able to verify anything. And we'll talk about why the word may is actually relevant here. So I will tell you guys that I am...
It's like going off.
What colors did you get?
It was all the way to the pink one.
So
It was green. It was green,
so about
yellow.
20?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Oh, it's just did it again. It's going to be yellow.
Perfect.
It's Mayday, Mayday.
It's Mayday, Mayday.
It's Mayday, Mayday.
All right, so we already have some activity going on, and again, let's get through the history here, and then we'll be able to just like really crank up those spirit boxes and get to work. So I always give you the history of a location first, and I'm going to tell you first off, I'm going to withhold information on purpose, so that way you guys all have a genuine experience. I'm not going to give you a bunch of subliminal messages for you guys to watch out for. So, spirit boxes, I will not be giving you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse, like what we just did over there with the big red bar, just so you guys know. You're going to get the answers from your spirit boxes. So let's get into the history here. Why are we in another parking lot? Jessica's like, yeah, this is not fun. We're in a parking lot. No.
Surrounded by people in cars.
What'd you get?
What if I die?
What if you die? That's what you just heard?
What if I die? What a bank account.
What if I die with a bank account?
Yeah.
That almost makes sense here. Let's get into it.
Somebody will be rich.
I know, right?
Write it down.
So here's where we are. We are at the Eliza and Charles Pinckney mansion site. Their mansion used to be in the front of this space where all those trucks are parked, facing East Bay Street. Eliza's garden was lined up with Five Church Restaurant and came all the way across, and we are standing in the servant and slave quarters for the home. So who the heck were these people? They had a son named Charles, they had a nephew named Charles. That's 3 different Charleses. Do you guys see why I look for those secondary verifiers now? We need to know who the hell we're talking to. That's 3 different Chucks we're going to be looking for. However, the son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution for South Carolina. It's a pretty big deal for us, but I hate politics more than everybody here. Yeah, of course I bring it up and they're going to start. So I already have down to 20. Just let me know if it goes all the way to the red. So we're going to talk about Eliza because there's way more cooler history there anyway. So let's get away from the politics, right? Just know that the Pinckneys, most of them were, the men were politicians, just so you know. But Eliza married Charles at a young age according to today's standards, not the colonial times that she came from. So the reason I bring that up is because her husband, Charles, that she married, was over double her age when they married. If you'll ask her later, once we separate, how old she was when she got married, just remember it's according to today's standards. You're not going to hear numbers like 12 and 14, colonial time ages of getting married, just so you know. But she married him because her father, over in England, thought he was dying. He was trying to get all of his kids home so he could see them one last time. She didn't think he was dying, so she stayed put and she got married in 1744. You don't get married in 1744 because you need a green card or citizenship. We're not even a country yet. She married him out of love. She was right. Her father did not die right away. Instead, he starts sending her gifts to this space. One of those gifts happened to be the plant seeds of indigo. You guys have been in town for at least an hour that I know of. You've seen the word indigo somewhere, I promise you. Indigo is a plant that makes blue dye that makes our blue jeans blue. That's actually what we use it for today. And when she got these seeds, she had no idea what to do with it. So she had to learn from her slaves on how to keep it cultivated in our weird temperatures. Just so, again, once she experimented with it and had it down pat, she moves it to another plantation, calls her father and says the rice plantations are going downhill. We can make a killing with this indigo, and she did. Now we have an international businesswoman during colonial times, something absolutely unheard of. So with that said, that's her business. Let's get into the weird stuff, because that's why you guys are all here, I guarantee it. So we're going to kind of assign a series of questions. So spirit boxes, we're going to start with you, Justice.
Okay.
I want you to go after what happened to the mansion. It's not here anymore. And if you get an answer, when did that happen? We're looking for a full date or maybe even just a year. So again, that'll be what you're focused on. As far as your word list goes, this Eliza I'm speaking about with the indigo.
Who is Roger?
I don't know. You have Roger on there? Is it spelled with a D in the middle of it?
D.
Like a R-O-D-G?
E-R.
She has
Sounds more like a last name to me than it does a first name. I've seen that on there before. It's the only reason I'm asking for that weird, odd spelling. So again, I've looked into it. I can't find a Roger relative to this location, but it has shown up here in the past. That's obviously, I recognize it. But I do want you to focus on, because this Eliza I'm speaking about is the second wife named Eliza. Yes?
She has.
What, I have like 2 dots in here. Is it just a reflection? Or
Yeah, so you have 2 lights working for you. You have this top torch, and then you have this side down here, and it's going to be reflecting. We're going to have at least 1 dot. You'll notice it moves
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trust
But
me,
I
the
didn't
last
see it
camera was
before.
way worse.
I
It
didn't
had
see
these
it
giant
before.
bulbs on it. I love the LED portion of it. But this Eliza is the second wife named Eliza. Now what do you have? Indigenous. Where we're standing.
Oh, it just went past the pink can.
Now we're getting readings over here.
What did she say?
We have a reading over here, but Marion's word list says the word indigenous. I want you to go after which Eliza we're talking about, because there's two different wives named Eliza. He actually had one wife named Eliza. She passes away in January before time. In January of 1744, and then marries this other Eliza, the one I spoke about, in May of 1744. There's your maiden name. But if you go after their maiden names to find out which one we're speaking to, they both have a maiden name that starts with the letter L. So that way you kind of have an idea of what you're looking for. I'm not going to give you any more clues than that. The children is where I'm going to throw these ones at you. I told you there's at least one. His name was Charles, right? Sign of the Constitution. There's more. Ask how many, what their names are. That's it. The reason why is because there's a tragedy among those children. Don't poke the bear. All activity will stop. We're starting to see a little bit of readings here and there. Just don't piss off the Pinckney family to the fact that they go away. Like, we want some answers out of these folks. And I will tell you what's going on with all of these answers before we leave.
I just heard Mayday, Mayday.
You heard it again?
Yeah.
Again, it's got to be some type of commercial, but we keep hearing it. Again, here's why I think Mayday, Mayday keeps showing up. Well, at least why we just heard it twice. Is I told you she got married in May, but she's also died in the month of May. So again, there's two different Mays.
When you're hearing it twice.
Exactly. But I think that Mayday, Mayday's got to be a commercial, because I've heard it at other locations. Oh, you know where the other space that I heard it by? Was by Charles's grave, which is right here in Charleston. So that would make sense too. Now that I'm trying to piece all this together from 2 weeks ago of investigation. Wow, is it bad that I remembered that? No, not at all. As far as what question I'm going to give you, what am I going to go throw at you? Oh, we're going to see if you can get some answers to her death. So you can ask her how old she was when she died, what she died from, where she's buried, and which president was a pallbearer at her funeral. So again, lots of questions. Notice that all of these questions, none of them are yes or no answers, just so you guys know. If you do not have a spare box but have one with an earbud, feel free to share the other earbud with the other person of your party, which is part of the reason why Jessica did not give you one. But again, I actually have to show, where is that damn millimeter? I keep forgetting who I gave what to. She's standing right behind me. So I have to work with Tracy on that REM pod for a few minutes, but we are going to spread out in this lot. Again, be mindful of moving vehicles. We do not go in between vehicles either. With it being this full, we're kind of limited on space, but there are like little tucked up corners that you can go up and ask your questions or do a little bit of footage with your cameras and so forth and so on. But I'm going to work with Tracy first to show her how to use this motion sensor. So let's spread out, and then I'll be bouncing around with all of you to see what's going on with your devices. So you might actually want to hang out to an open air spirit box, because you are the only pair of two that doesn't have one. So that way you guys can actually hear what's going on with Bill's spirit box too. So that's kind of a cool aspect, not to mention the audio might be recorded on your camera if we miss something. So go ahead and unmute yours. So that's the right button, there's only one there. You got it. Perfect. So you might not hear anything all the time. It'll come through in spurts, just like that. All right, everybody got their spirit boxes cranked up?
Yeah.
All right.
Tell me not to ask.
Don't ask about the tragedy of the child.
Oh, don't ask.
Yeah, just ask. Let's get simple answers. Names of the kids and how many she had total.
Are we physically asking the question out loud?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay.
So if you want to just focus on the questions that I gave you, that's cool too. If you want to ask them out loud, that's perfectly fine. I will tell you that if you're asking out loud, the answers can go anywhere. Sorry, wait for him to go by. We have 5 spirit boxes in play and 3 cameras with audio. If you're not hearing your answer, you might hear an answer to Miss Beth's question over there. Because if she's going to ask hers out loud, you might get the number of children that she had and possibly one of the names. The answers can go anywhere. That's why I love to use so many devices at once. These full groups like this, you get a much better investigation out of this. The answer can actually come up through an audible on Jessica's camera. We never know where it's going to go. So again, listen in on those spirit boxes. And your volume is kind of preset though, just so you know, because the way the auto noise canceling works out. And again, you guys can actually share earbuds, so that way you can kind of work both of those spirit boxes together. All right, spread out. Let's have some fun with this.
Can you ask your questions again? Just you asked probably 7 questions. Can you ask them again? You asked the number of children,
Yeah, I
the
forgot my
last
questions
names.
too.
You asked the age that she passed. What were the other things that you asked?
So
Eliza. You said
Eliza was her name.
that was the wife's name.
Eliza.
Two of them.
There was two different Elizas, correct?
Last name started
Maiden
with L.
names.
Maiden name.
Maiden names. So like the names they had before they married Charles.
Started with L.
Yes. The children, how many, and what their names are, what happened to the mansion, and when that happened. Let's see, what else did I miss that you did not catch? Eliza's death is one of them. So there's a lot of questions that wrap around the death. I just throw some general ones out there that we commonly get answers to. Her age when she died, where she's buried, how she died, and the president question is usually something people actually like to go after because it's very specific. So, and last night I will tell you that relative terms to that president, I want to say we had like 6 terms show up among different spirit boxes, all relevant to that one president that took her to her grave. So, very interesting that we had that much show up in one night. I was actually kind of surprised. So I was kind of like, oh, okay. Apparently this president wants to come to her. She wants to tell us about it. So it is what it is. Every night's different. That's why I love doing this. I never know what's going to happen. I can tell the same histories every night, but it's different every single night. Sometimes we capture a lot of anomalies through the cameras. Other nights, there's nothing. We just never know. All right. Did I answer everybody's questions on how they're going to be working and going about? So I can show Tracy how to use hers. Nice slow movements. Did your camera stop because it doesn't look like it's recording anything?
Restarted the numbers.
Yeah, it creates large files, so they're only like 10 minutes long. So it's like 9 minutes and 50 seconds or something.
Okay.
Because the files are so long, I'm going to join them all together so you only have one video. You compress it so that way you have a nice video to watch. But again, it does act a little funny. That's a relatively newer upgrade for us too. So, but it's been working phenomenally.
Did you see that you was hanging with these ladies?
They can hang out with you so that way they can listen and speak in case you miss something. So listening to a spirit box isn't always a one-person job.
I'm having a hard time understanding. I'm hearing words, but
Yeah. Yeah, and you're only going to hear probably 10 or 12 things that you can't make. So whatever you make out of this. Right. All right, come on over, Tracy. Let me show you how to use that thing. All right, so you said you've used one of these before in the past?
I've seen it with friends. I've done ghost things, and I've been to Sally House and stuff like that.
Oh, very cool. So have you had any numbers move on yours at all?
No.
Nothing at all?
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and pull up that antenna on the left. Flip the device around so you can see the back of it. There's a little flap. You're going to lift it up this way, but it's very loose, so you have to kind of pull it there until we get the button. There's 2 little white buttons back there. Click the one on the right, closer to the edge. Perfect. Now turn it around slowly. Now, because we're walking around with this, I have the parameters set pretty small, so it's pretty tight around this. Okay. So as you walk around, you don't see the little bit like that. Okay. Right where your thumb is.
But I'm not my numbers off there, so I don't know.
You're working independently.
Gotcha.
So again, you had a 3.
Yeah, green, red.
So yeah, this guy actually gives us way more accurate readings. So basically, you're walking around looking for the high readings on the red screen.
Okay.
And kind of let us know what you find. And I'll be bouncing around to see what you got.
Okay.
All right, Jess. Anything crazy going on with yours?
No, like the only thing I was getting was like right next to the gentleman's elbow there. It was like a 15-degree difference, but I think it's just that car window. It
might be
consistently
windows are
reading that
always
way.
like colder, so
Yeah.
you know. All right, Justice, what do you got going on with yours?
I heard keep breathing and then do what you love or call it work.
Very nice, thanks. Okay.
Didn't Chicken Finger
Yeah, I was actually getting ready to go ask her what
I
it's.
heard what if.
Direction?
Which direction do you want us to go, Eliza? I know holding a camera isn't always the most exciting work, but the film, like the part of it when you're watching it, that's where it actually, if we actually capture some movement going through it, it's just as important as listening to a script. Oh yeah, absolutely. Take tons of them. Hundreds.
Oh, okay.
Hundreds of them. We never know when things are going to actually pop through.
Alright, let me catch up with Mary.
So who was the president that was the pallbearer at your funeral?
Three. She
Three?
said three.
Three?
Mm-hmm.
Is it 3-3?
Three.
Twice? I mean, 3-3.
Is that Wayne? Say Rotten.
I feel like I'm on a game of Survivor. Like I got the outcast up here, and then you guys all huddled back here, like scheming. Love it.
We got
So we got
3-3-3, Rotten,
Rotten,
and Wayne.
That's a lot coming out of that device. Yeah. I don't expect that. I didn't understand the question because I get accused of making these devices go off all the time. Because no, if you want to check my pockets, she's like, no. I meant, did you bring somebody with you to make this go off? Like, you have a lost loved one with you? I'm like, there is, but not to the extent that I actually see the evidence stuff. So, but it was the same question. That's why I say That's not getting Nick arrested. Woohoo, that's cool.
no Nick arrested.
Wait, what did that say?
Put your lights on, both of them. Turn upside down.
Oh, thank you. There was a Ralph.
Ralph.
Ralph and Field. Dantzler?
Chancellor.
Where's Dantzler?
Ralph Field
And there was a Scotty. Alright.
Mine, hers are not synced up, so kind of weird.
Oh, it's all the way to red.
You're maxed out then.
Sale and fall. Getting closer.
All right, Eliza, you give me another minute. Try to get some answers.
Red again.
Where's Tracy at?
She's over there.
Ralph
Incredibly.
Field, Dantzler, Scotty.
Scotty.
All right, so Ralph.
You seen cold spots on me?
Dantzler,
You feeling them though?
Scotty.
Lots of names. Since you're getting the reds over here. What was the last term that you had? I missed it.
Verify that.
So what's the last term?
What's the last term you had on there?
Incredible.
Eliza, can you make the box with the metal stick go to blue?
Green.
Green. Eliza, make that box go to blue for us. We're getting close to it. You know how it works.
Come on, light it up. You did before.
Sound like Jane.
Show us what color the indigo was. I get a lot of
The red.
Something other about red.
The red.
That's
Didn't you
not
say
the
there was
color.
another Elijah?
Two Elizas.
Didn't you say there was a second Elijah?
Well, we spoke of the second one. There's a first one. There's a wife prior to this one.
Yeah.
Acting. Want something relative to indigo, Eliza.
Light for
The
yourself.
color of it.
Right for yourself.
Light for yourself.
Light. Word blue. Rocks. Make it simple tonight. You hearing anything? You don't have a reading at this point.
It sounded like blue came through.
Eliza, can you tell us the color blue?
Indigo.
We're on a ghost hunt. We're looking for you, Eliza. It's not like you don't see me 7 nights a week. Tracy, you got something?
Oh, just 16.
16?
Look at how you had her up to 49 once.
Oh, nice.
Oh, got a couple of green leaves.
We're on to 49 now.
Over in this area.
All right, I'm going to pull us all to the back and get you guys all these answers because it doesn't look like she wants to respond directly. So I know you think you've heard of blue, but unless it's going to be on my audio, there's no way to prove it because I didn't hear it as well. Yeah, just so we can kind of get over the answers. Just tap that button on the right-hand side. Alright, so whenever I break out the tablet, you guys don't need to like huddle around or kind of go around the room where you guys can see all these answers. What I am going to tell you is that last night's tour, last night or the night before, where we actually had a lot of terms, very specific names and numbers and those kind of things. Jessica, you can stop your video too, so hit that square. Sorry. No, you're good. Stop the record and hit it again. Yeah, just kind of give a few minutes on her. Do you have like goosebumps or anything?
Yeah, I got like goosebumps all of a sudden.
What's interesting is everybody here has been mostly reading in the 90s until now. She's in the 80s.
Oh, well, you're also, it's on the top of her shorts, so go up a little bit. She should be in the 90s now.
Still in the mid to upper 80s.
Read Justice. Kind of get a read from both of them. Roughly. She's got a little bit more white to her face because she's warmer at this point. But yeah, just kind of let's get a few minutes of footage as I kind of go through the answers and see if anything's actually going on.
Maybe you should swing around.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
No,
Maybe
she should swing around the video. What was the 3-3?
I don't know.
3-3 seemed to be pretty prominent.
I have no idea. I can't even put a date on that. I can't put a specific anything on it. Because, I mean, of course, I look at all these dates every single day. Or I'm looking for matchups and reasonable matchups and anything in my brain at this point. I did write it down.
So what did you say about the children? She had 4 children?
Yeah, and the children I was going through. So she said she was getting full. So, Baby George. Baby George does not have a grave or a headstone. Yes, I know, very odd indeed. June of 1747. So June 14th is the only date that I can find about George. We don't know if he was days or weeks old because he doesn't have a headstone. And his death certificate has the same month and year in the birth and death column. So again, we don't know if he was days or weeks, but he has a name. Back in colonial times, you didn't name a child until they were christened or baptized. So I'm guessing he was at least a few weeks old, minimum of 3 years. So the reason I think he doesn't have a headstone or a grave is because they would have mummified this child, keeping him right here in the home, waiting for his mother to pass. So that way he could be buried with his mother. Now you can't Google mummy baby and not expect a phone call from the government, so I can't prove any of this. It is going to get a little bit weirder when we start talking about Eliza's death. But there's one more child, Harriet, the only daughter. She married Daniel Ory. Myrtle Beach is in Ory County. That should give you all an idea of where they lived, on a 2.5-hour car ride from here. Eliza wasn't going on a 2.5-hour car ride because they didn't have cars. Lots of letter writing instead to stay in touch with their daughter. If Harriet shows up here, which is very seldom, you get a lot of terms that are wrapped around letter writing around the time span that they lived in. So quill, ink, paper, those type of things. Publish shows up here all the time because all of those letters were published. But again, it's very random that we see Harriet that actually shows up here. Eliza's death, that was your questions, correct? Eliza was 70 years old when she died in 1793. She was going to Philadelphia, getting treatments, whatever they thought she had. It turned out to be breast cancer. We didn't know what breast cancer was fully in 1793 yet. So we're going based off of her medical records today. As far as her death, that's where she died, Philadelphia. That's where she's buried, Philadelphia. That should ask 2 questions for you. First off, why does Stories in the Cemetery, the tour, not take you to actual cemeteries? None of you are going to actually hang out near your grave when you're gone, right? And you're going to come to your mansion 400 miles away, which is why we go to spaces like this. The other question that should be in the back of your mind is Baby George. If my theory is correct, they would have moved that baby from this space by horse and carriage all the way to Philadelphia to be buried with his mother. But there's no proof. So just kind of keep that in the back of your brains. Any guesses as to who the president was that was the pallbearer?
Washington.
It was Washington. So how did you come up with Washington?
He was our first president.
He was our first president. Time frame, right? So I did play one subliminal trick on you. I'm the wordsmith. I get one of them. When we got here, I told all you Spirit Box folks, I'm not going to be giving you questions like what color is George Washington's white horse. Putting the name George Washington in the back of all of your brains. Now, he actually figured it out by narrowing it down by the time frame, but he didn't just blurt it out as soon as we separated because it was in the back of his mind. So good job. You all passed with a fail. So that's a good thing. This means you guys aren't just going to be repeating off the Spirit Boxes everything I say. Now, you both heard Eliza. So that was the interesting piece, because Eliza's not a common name you would hear, but you told me separately that you guys heard it, and then you came to me and said, I heard Eliza a few minutes afterwards. So that's something that I would look at. One of them, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm going to write it down because you did hear it, but a second one verifies that the name Eliza came through somewhere. So just kind of take that for what it is. So this base is an intelligent haunting. We can ask questions, get answers. The next base is not that way. It is a residual haunting. You're getting a little bit of everything as far as what type of haunting we're going to be going through. So here's what's going to happen. Your EMF readers, we're going to be walking by parking meters and that kind of thing. You can ignore your readings, but you're a tourist, so you can take a million pictures. That's why you have two items, because these devices aren't always, going to be working in both fashions. But ignore your readings because the ghosts aren't calling us. You guys get that, right?
Yep. Should I turn this on?
Not yet. Okay. Yeah, we definitely want to.
It's really cool. Oh, that's not nice.
You guys in a minute once I hear if there's any names coming through. So any names pop up?
You got Captain.
Red brick road.
Right before we cross the last street.
Yeah.
And then right after we cross the last street, you got Red Brick Road.
Love it.
And of course I hear Jesus.
Okay, it's close to St. Philip. You're going to hear a lot of religious content.
I got Warm Air, Council.
Warm air. Very interesting. So it's almost like telling us to watch the thermal. Jessica, did you get anything on yours along the way? Nothing on yours? Justice.
I got a song, I'm coming out tonight.
No names coming.
No names.
Alright, so let's talk about where we are. So go ahead and mute yours for me, because we are in a quiet space. We're next to the hotel room, so we don't disturb anybody. We're going to spend a ton of time here, but I'd love to show you guys the love darkened alley of Charleston, right? So, we're going to be using Tracy's device specifically in here, but I am going to position this Kathy across the way, and I want you to point your lasers at the wall next to me. And then, Lloyd, I'm going to have you, like, almost in the center, filming through it. So that way, in the event something actually passes through, so yeah, pick one laser, point it directly at this wall, perfect. Just try not to go in any windows, I think it'll be okay. But basically what we're looking for here, folks, is any kind of movement that's going to pass through here, we'll be able to capture it on the video. So as I'm kind of talking here, I'm going to stay out of the way of your laser because I do have seizures. So we're going to kind of, I'll be looking this way for most of it, just so you guys know. But with this location, when we crossed that last crosswalk, that's where the original Charlestown wall used to be. So this place Charleston used to be called Charlestown. If you didn't know that, we were a walled city. So you are standing on one of the very first streets that Charlestown ever had. So this is called Lodge Alley now. It used to be called Simmons Alley, because obviously somebody named Simmons used to own it. But with that, I have the full list of residents of every person that ever lived here. Don't be too impressed because it's not a lengthy list. There's not many people on that list, and when I say people lived here, it's not like there were dozens. I'm talking like 2 to 6 people lived here at a time. The weird thing is I get the same names every 6 to 7 weeks, like on a loop. Benjamin and John. Now there were 4 different Johns that lived here. So this John likes to give us his last name, Johnson. It's a very specific name, so we're going to turn that little white button off because we're not going to use that in here because it does exactly what is going on right now. It's being interrupted by the apartment hotel behind me.
You're getting annoying.
I usually have you shut it off, but it was giving us a little bit of readings and like I wanted to see what's going. But Benjamin and John often show up here every 6 to 7 weeks, and I think we're dealing with the stone tape theory here. So basically you're standing on Belgian blocks. These are said to be made of granite. You all seem to be in the paranormal field of some kind, like at least you watch the TV shows, you've heard the term limestone before. Limestone is said to stir up activity because it comes straight from the earth. So does granite. But granite is not supposed to hold an electromagnetic field charge. So Tracy, I want you to take your device and literally set it on a dry brick for me. Just set it on the ground and let me know if any readings come up on your red screen. So we are not supposed to have anything above a 1.1 with that because that's a natural EMF field from the earth. If she gets anything above that, we might actually have some readings going on with your devices. as far as the names, I was not expecting you guys to hear Benjamin and John tonight, because right now we're on like week 3, 4 of that 6 to 7 week long loop. So again, I wasn't expecting it, but again, you never know. Every once in a while, a third name will pop up. That name is Jane. Now, somebody heard the name Jane earlier. Who heard the name Jane? Bill, did that come out of yours? Can't remember. Somebody heard the name Jane. But again, a little too far away from the space. But this particular location is always giving me surprises. Do you have any numbers showing up on there at all?
So it's staying in the 7s. It's kind of bouncing between 7.1 and 0 and staying, 7s.
Okay, so try a brick on your left side now. Let's see if we can get a different reading. I'll write down that 7 as we leave. Before people lived here, the Freemasons had a Masonic lodge here, hence the name Lodge Alley. So go ahead and kill your laser because it looks like we got another group coming through. I don't know where they're going to stop. What we got? Fair enough.
6.9.
6.9. So we got about a 7 all the way around. That's interesting.
So low 7s here, high 6s
there.
there.
Very interesting. I've seen it go all the way to 11.9 in this location. Beans. There was a James Bean that lived here, I want to say 1847. Very interesting. So we're going to lift this group just past it. It looks like they're just... There was a James Bean that lived down here. So again, I'm always getting surprises out of this alley. This alley is what I'm studying for my next podcast episode. So the fact that you just gave me more numbers is showing me assurance because it doesn't always occur. And I stop at the same spot next to this guy right here. And I usually have you guys drop the device on a brick on that side. And I don't always get a reading out of it. But back to the Freemasons. So again, we will get terms wrapped around the Freemasons. Obviously Freemason, Mason, brick, and we do get the term Illuminati quite a bit here. Now, first question to you is who the hell is talking about the Illuminati on the radio? Because that's where it's coming from. And second, why am I only hearing it while we're in this space? Last year alone, we had Illuminati show up 6 times, and this year we've already had it 3 times. So again, I can't make this stuff up. I have to chuckle every time I hear it, but it is. We're going to let these 2 gentlemen pass through. Oh, you're good. Did you bring us all coffee?
No. Would you like some?
Nah. So glad you guys are laughing and having a good time. So here's what's going to happen from here. We're going to go to another alley. I told you we weren't going to spend a lot of time in this space. Did Bean show up on the word list or something you heard? Showed up on list. Okay, so I don't have to write it down, but I do have to write down the rings and traces device. So we're going to go to another alley. However, I cannot take you through it because I've been booted out. So that's the funny part. I am going to tell you how I got kicked out of it. You guys have the blinky lights and the noise makers and all that stuff, and it is residential at the end. So again, you're going to see why I don't take you all the way through it. And yes, I will tell you how I got kicked out of there. Tracy's like, really? I want to go through it now. I still tell the story outside of the alley because again, we've already had one clue to that with the Ralph that showed up, and it's the same location that I talk about every night. That hopefully we'll get clues the rest of our time together because we're going to be relatively close to it. It bleeds over all the time into the last location. But the alley is super cool. When we leave the alley, both video cameras, you will stop recording because we're cutting through a neighborhood to get through to the next alley, and we don't record people's houses. However, spirit boxes definitely keep listening in. EMF readings are going to be out of commission until we get to our last stop, just so you know, because the parking meters are going to make your devices go off, like I said earlier. But yeah, definitely unmute yours for a few minutes there, Bill. We'll see what we can get out of it, and let's go up to the next alley where I get kicked out. That sounds like fun, right? Jessica, any weird things going on with yours?
Nothing.
Well, nothing you can see on that small screen. Because I do upload it to YouTube, so you guys can watch it however you want to.
Okay, the only things that pop up tend to be the windows or like it looked like the AC coming out of the bottom of the doors there. That's the only thing I've noticed so far.
Okay. It doesn't always capture something every night, but when we do, like it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be through your review or my spot check.
Okay.
So I know it's not always the most exciting thing. It is at first because it's like, holy cow, like that car's really that warm, but yeah, that's kind of how that device goes. But yeah, as we exit, go ahead and stop your video. But very discreetly, because other tourists do like to come down here, and they didn't pay to get filmed. So again, we're just going to indiscreetly film the alley and see if we get any anomalies as I kind of go through the story of what this location actually is. So this is Philadelphia Alley. I'm sorry, did you hear something, Justice? No. Oh, I thought you were raising your hand like you were in class. So I get that a lot. I'm sure you guys can tell. But this used to be called Duelers Alley. This is where some of the duels used to occur for the city of Charleston. Every ghost tour tells the same story about which duel actually occurred down here because we can actually prove it. However, I tell it a little differently because you're not sitting around a campfire waiting for a ghost story. You need details because you're ghost hunting. So let's get into it. There's a doctor that moves down here from Rhode Island. His name is Joseph Brown Ladd. He moves down here because his fiancee Amanda just inherited a bunch of money from her dead parents. She has an attorney that's helping her out with this cash flow. The attorney thinks that the doctor is just after Amanda's money, so he tells Amanda, get rid of the doctor. Dr. Ladd moves to Charleston to prove that he's not just after her cash. The coachman that brought him into town set him up to be robbed and killed. So it wasn't a very good start to his stay in Charleston. But somebody walking by named Ralph Isaacs, now we had the name Ralph earlier. Again, this is the story where I had a lot of terms relative to this story at the Pinckney Mansion site just the other night. So, I'm going to also stop on Ralph because you're ghost hunting. Initials mean something. Ralph has the same initials as to where the doctor came from. R.I. shows up here all the time. Rhode Island, Ralph Isaacs. We just don't know who it belongs to until we get that second clue, like doctor or attorney, because Ralph was an attorney. See why we look for those secondary verifiers? But R.I. is very common here, just so you guys know. But anyway, back to him and Ralph. Ralph tells the doctor, you don't want to stay here, man. He's like, I know that guy. He's got a gunman inside. He's going to try to kill and rob you. So he's like, I got some friends at 59 Church Street. You can stay there, and you'll be safe and good to go. The doctor takes him up on the offer, and the two become friends. The doctor stays here longer and longer, and his practice starts to take off. It means he's making his own money, and Amanda's moving down soon. He becomes known as the Whistling Doctor. Now, every cliched haunted city you will ever visit in the future has a cliched like whistling ghost, just so you know. We all have a whistling ghost story. This one I actually have proof from. Let's finish off the story. I thought I heard a whisper. So funny. Sorry, I have to keep you guys alive, right? But the whole point of this is that him and Ralph go see plays together, but they can't sit next to each other because the doctor makes more money. He gets better seats. It's just the way things go. So one night they go see William III, and they're arguing over the new actress along the way home. The doctor thought the new actress in town was fantastic, Ralph not so much. It gets even more heated when Ralph starts insulting the doctor's fiancée Amanda back home in Rhode Island. They go their separate ways. Pretty ugly story. However, Ralph is from here. He has friends at the newspaper. He puts an ad in the paper telling the whole city of Charleston what he thinks of the doctor. The doctor sees the ad and rebuttals with, let's go to Jeweler's Alley. We're going to settle this once and for all. Somebody's going to die. So they come down, they take their 10 paces, they turn. The doctor points his gun in the air, and he shoots. He didn't want to kill his friend. He just wanted to have the courage and bravery to show up to the fight, which is often what happened at a duel in these times. Ralph has his one shot, and he puts it in the kneecap on the doctor. So the doctor doesn't die either, but Ralph proved his point that he's still pissed off. The doctor drops, his friends pick him up, carry him home to 59 Church Street, where he dies 10 days later, after refusing medical treatment. He's a doctor. He probably tried to bleed this out himself. So, the Campfire ghost story part of this is where you can walk down the alley with a voice recorder and you'll hear whistles in the background. If you're going to do that without me, because obviously I'm not going to take you down there, and you're going to see why here in a moment, keep in mind every local knows this story. Anybody walking up and down Cumberland Street or Queen Street on the other side is going to throw a whistle down the alley. Didn't we have the word Queen show up?
Yeah.
When we were at Pinckney Mansion? Very interesting. But I do it every single night, just so you know. We're actually going to end up there. My garage is right there, which means I have to pass the alley. I'm going to throw a whistle down the alley every single night, just because I can't go down there with you guys. So here's how I got booted out, because you're like, yeah, let's hear this part of the story, right? So this alley didn't always come all the way through. So that means the bricks on the other side are older than the bricks on this side. I would take my teams all the way through there, just to show off those bricks, because they're sun-dried bricks from slave children. There's a full handprint and fingerprint swipes in those bricks at the end. Now, I wasn't going down there for bragging rights. You guys can obviously see I'm all about the history, and I need to show people how far we've come away from slavery. We're in Charleston, right? It's a pretty big deal for us. However, I want you to think of that brick, and that kid is not staring at that brick in the afterlife. Everybody wants to try to put a spirit box or an EMF meter near, trying to get some kind of reading and that kind of thing. You're not going to get anything. But one night, November 26th of 2020, yes, a very specific date, Bill. He's looking at me like, really? But everybody wanted to huddle around that brick to try to get a reading. It was outside a gentleman's dining room window of his beautiful mansion. He came out screaming, not very happy with me. My daughter was on the tour that night. She thought it was great because Dad's getting yelled at, and we went on our merry way. The next day was Thanksgiving of that year, so I did not have a tour. I worked in retail management for over 20 years before I started doing this. I'm sure you all can appreciate why I took Thanksgiving off, and it was for Walmart, no less. So, but with that said, the next day was November 28th. Yes, another specific date. I get a phone call from the tourism office asking me to go down halfway or reroute my tour. Well, it's not fair for my groups of 10 to try to work in a small space around groups of 20 to 60, because that's how large we're allowed to go with our tours, is groups of 20. So I decided I'm going to reroute. I told my team that night, we're going to wing it, because I don't believe in this story, but we're going to see what happens. Somebody hears the name Anne before we leave on a spirit box. I did not tell them we were going to be investigating the female pirate Anne Bonny. So I'm like, okay, maybe there is a little bit of merit to this. We get up there, I told them what I knew. Somebody else hears the number 300. I have no idea what that means. The next day I do my research on the number 300 for the Anne Bonny story. Anne Bonny's trial was November 28th of 1720 for piracy. We were there on November 28th of 2020, the exact 300-year anniversary of her pirate trial. This is exactly why I've been going back there night after night. Now, this is a hit-or-miss location. Now, worst case scenario, I had to read a shit ton of books about pirates, and I'm a vampire guy, so you know how hard that was for me. So, I'm not a pirate person, but this is an amazing story, so I'm going to go into great detail up there. If anything else, you're going to learn a whole hell of a lot about pirates and the gunpowder magazine. I'll explain why we're going to the powder magazine once we get up to that location. Before we leave this space, have we heard or seen anything on our spirit boxes before we move? All right. I know it's hard to listen to me and those at the same time. So again, I don't know that you're listening or you're not because you guys control the volume. I will take a last two onion punches. I don't know what the onion is for. Very weird. But this used to be called Cow Alley because this is where they actually kept the livestock before it was called Bueller's Alley, which is part of the reason why it was closed off at one time. Because the livestock were there. Very interesting piece of art history down there. Interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and kill those video recorders, and we're going to go up to our last stop and see what goes on up there. It's a good thing I didn't give you a spirit box, huh? What do you got now?
You've already hated.
What else you got? Anything else?
I can do it. You want me to turn this off?
Yeah, go ahead and mute it for me. We're going to be talking about pirates.
Oh, this is going off.
Out of that. Yeah, we can have a seat here if you guys want to chill and relax for a few minutes. We're going to get through the history of this location and we're going to explore a little bit more. Kind of like what we did at the Pinckney Mansion site. You guys all know what you're doing with your devices by now. You're actually overloading my notepads and you're running out of sheets of paper. So, welcome to the Powder Magazine. We're going to be discussing this tiny little building right here first and foremost. I'm going to set my bag down next to you, Jessica, just so my back can take a little bit of a break and breathe. So, Powder Magazine. Discuss it first. So this is, you guys notice the little crosses on here as we kind of walked up to it?
Yeah.
Those are not crosses, those are earthquake bolts. In the event that we have another earthquake like what we did in 1886, you're supposed to be able to turn those, because they're on turnbuckles, and straighten the building back up again. It's a great idea, it just doesn't work. Yeah. The only reason I bring these up is because these are the first set of earthquake bolts that we put in Charleston, because this is the oldest government building in South Carolina. It was finished in 1713. We are here because this building is what I call a familiar. It's kind of like using a toy to attract a child ghost. So again, there's not many buildings this old in Charleston, especially where tours are allowed to go. I know you guys are in an escape room right now, but again, that's kind of like the reason why we're here. But we talked about those Charlestown walls. Kind of thing coming through the screen. But you can also go to the front of the powder magazine to get some footage. Lasers are saved in there as well, just make sure they stay on the ground. And just don't interrupt the other tours. Same rule goes for cars in here, but we're pretty much going to be hanging out on this side, and we're going to basically know, we have the word bacteria as I'm talking about a pirate dying in a Jamaican jail. We might actually have a few more terms that pop up.
Already got them.
What else you got?
Since I showed you axe, befriend, wait popped up when you're talking about the sand. Try, facts, it is here.
It is here.
Brendan.
Brendan?
B-R-E-N-D-A-N. And then bacteria when you're talking about her dying.
Interesting. I have no idea who the hell Brendan is. But there's a whole list of pirates out there. I'm sure Brendan is on there somewhere. But yeah, let's get those spirit boxes cranked up. Lasers are in full effect. Camera's running.
What are the questions? What?
And Bonnie's parents, or Calico Jack's ship, or anything else you want to ask. So again, this one's open fair game. You guys know what you're doing. We've been together for quite some time now, and a lot of different locations.
You said this is a government building. Regular.
So it's a museum now. I will tell you that. It actually has a lot of the artillery and uniforms from all the different wars that it served. So it's actually really, if you ever need to get out of our heat or our cold, it's a great $5 to spend. Like take the 30-minute tour, it's $5, you learn a whole hell of a lot about Charleston from this little tiny building.
Where's the front of it?
So you would exit the lot and go like around this coastline, and it's over on this side. Unless you want to, of course, call it the back. Yep.
They said. Stop when it starts.
There's a whole bunch of people down there. That's why I'm going down there.
Something about playing.
Another lady.
really hot, right? 'Cause
The head for sure.
I'm hot.
You know what's funny is you have the same name as your father. You're the one.
Really?
Oh, I get goosebumps.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, kind of a stretch, but
Yeah,
I'll take it.
gave me goosebumps.
It said, "You're the one, love."
You get a lot of either genderizing, like female terms in this location. Obviously, because of the cross-dressing bit that she had to go through. But one specific night on a spirit box, we all heard it. It was, and actually, I think it was this. Yeah, it was this one because we just started using it. The word pirate came out clear as day, and it wasn't from like the Pittsburgh Pirates, like a baseball game. It just said pirate, and we caught the audio of it on one of the cameras. It was the third one.
Oh, we got a lot of activities.
We got.
It went to red.
That's odd because we don't get a whole lot of smoke out of this location.
And then I heard if you want to die, and then it went to that.
It's funny as I know what song that's from. It's a rock band, right? You go heavy metal looking?
No.
No? You turn on the motion sensor on that one? Because that's where we get any activity out of it on this location. Yeah, we don't get a whole lot of numbers out of here.
Like a 280.
Same time, I can't say what it is here. Anything crazy going on, Jess?
Earlier I got like a white, like, not white, but I guess the more intense color kind of came a little bit into frame and then went back.
Okay,
When
you
I
were
was
recording?
standing, yeah, when I was standing over there, and then I got some like lines going, but
Nick,
Yes.
I don't see
I
them now.
just heard "Hello, are you listening?" but on two different things.
Two different stations?
Yeah, and hers is off again.
Is it in a rhythm or a pattern? Or is it just kind of erratic?
Kind of erratic, yeah.
And I want you to tell us what color your hair was.
I just heard name ship.
It's like green.
I heard Jesus again.
It's not green.
That sounded like Sorrento.
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 I mean, I'm pretty far away. I'm
Yeah,
just.
it said Sorrento.
And tell us what color your hair was, or you can show us on that box like you did the other night. That came from your phone.
It's from their phone.
Yeah, your phone was on top of it. And tell us what color your hair was. Beth, you got anything? She can't hear me at all. She got both of them. You hear?
Suitable.
Suitable?
That's what just popped up. Since I walked from over there, cows, elephants, McCain, suitable.
Well, what's funny is I told you we'd get clues from Philadelphia Alley all night. When I told you livestock was down there,
Yeah.
it used to be called Cow Alley.
Right.
That was its name before Dueler's Alley. And we want to know what color your hair was. What's funny is we don't normally get a red out of it, and we got it as a direct answer a few nights ago. Basically, we're going to touch it.
Thank
Bank?
THAN.
Bank. And we're only going to give you another minute. You know how this works. Long story, short investigation. color your hair was. Alright, I'm going to pull us right back over to the wall since you guys seem to be pretty quiet. Yeah, we can go ahead and kill the videos. I'm going to start collecting devices here in a moment.
Should we go to the front of the building now that all this people are
Oh, you guys didn't get any footage up there yet?
No.
Yeah, you can.
All right.
Yeah, go up and get us some footage from up there.
Okay.
Again, they were all gone when we went up there.
Well,
It's just another tour.
We also live in Hertford. Oh yeah, my dad was stationed in Norfolk. He was in the Navy, so we lived there my whole life.
Hertford.
Tracy's lifted
Where is it?
Oh yeah,
Is that up?
that's close. That's close.
I've only been there 2.5 years, so I'm still learning.
Yeah. We have another house in Hertford. She goes.
We have a good Mexican joint down there in Hertford.
Yeah. It's there's one right in which one?